Dr. Rupa Huq.
Thank you, Ms. Bennett. It's a pleasure to serve on your committee. And while this debate's title is primarily concerned with Armenian refugees from Nagorno-Karabakh, it is a complex situation here, complex region, multiple factors at play, with some 4,400 square feet. So the refugee crisis results from, whether we're calling it annexation or occupation, a struggle that struggles at the moment, it's been said, to gain attention in a world where we're becoming increasingly desensitized to conflict, be it Russia, Ukraine, Israel, Palestine. Yet we're talking here of a European near neighbor, a democracy, with hostile neighboring territory of Azerbaijan and its aggressions, its ethnically motivated crimes against Armenians. The figures are grim. 10 months of illegal blockade of food, fuel, electricity, forced displacement of 100,000 people. My interest in this comes from my constituency. We have a vibrant and sizable Armenian community. Many are hyphenated Armenians, Iranian Armenians, Syrian Armenians, Turkish Armenians. And that underscores the fact that this is a country that has had pogroms and massacres, genocides for many, many years. I was also one that was on the delegation in February with other MPs. That visit took in the Prime Minister, the President of the very handsome wood-panelled National Assembly, opposition and government people. In fact, a Minister for Economy we saw then had to resign hours after our visit. But look, it was only when we got out of the embassies, the ministries, when we got out to Jermuk, in the snow-capped hills there, that the most memorable aspect of the visit took place. We got out to the cosy confines of Yerevan, the capital, and we took in the ancient monastery on our route in the mountains, which is a sign that this is the cradle of Christendom. And some of the atrocities we've seen, the destruction of churches, of crosses, the attempt to entirely delete Armenian culture, the renaming of these towns and cities, sickening. Our visit also, as the member for Malden pointed out, was underscored by the killing of 4 soldiers. So it's the refugees that we saw that, as I say, were the most memorable. So Jermuk is a town known as a bottled water brand, with a reindeer as its logo, in fact. It was once a fashionable ski resort and spa town. Now it's 80% deserted from that former trade. Instead, it's readjusting to its new existence, accommodating the influx of Nagorno-Karabakh refugees. And we heard really moving, harrowing stories of human suffering, really touching stuff about people who fled on foot in the absence of fuel, the days and days it took to get over the border, the sadistic actions of the Russian soldiers with their black market, boiling sweets and all sorts of stuff, really horrific stuff, making their journey over. We spoke to the mayor and the governor of Jermuk, and as I say, the trauma that has beset these people, different generations, they've integrated well. They were grateful for what the municipality is doing. But, you know, our voice should be stronger in this country, because we were in this room in 2020 debating the blockade of the Lachin corridor, and just a weakened response emboldens, and this thing was totally foreseeable all those years ago. And it's been pointed out that, you know, this is an old elite that moved from a velvet revolution. It's turning away from Russian influence. I think it's been called a pivot away from the Kremlin. It's not been a comfortable transition. The EU has granted candidate status to Ukraine, Moldova, Georgia, no such privilege for Armenia, despite the fact, and also no love from Russia, despite the fact it's still a member of the CSTO. We vowed to use our voices to raise their plight on our return. And we laid flowers at the National Genocide Memorial. Again, the very fact there is a National Genocide Memorial, the hyphenated Armenians of Ealing and Acton remind us of how wide the Armenian diaspora is. It's scattered and forced throughout different countries because of continuous persecution, genocide and displacement. Again, among the 20,000 in London, we have Ukrainian Armenian communities. Ealing Borough, mine, has long commemorated the Armenian genocide of 1915, and we've had an apricot tree at Ealing Green. It was upgraded this September to a more permanent memorial, already vandalised by what is suspected to be the Turkish Wolves group who protested its inauguration last autumn. I've called for this government to recognise 1915 as a genocide. Our closest ally, Biden, has done, but yet there's been no budging, and there's this timidity, this vacuum that allows these actions of Azerbaijan, who's recently had an election which the result was entirely foreseeable, rather like the Russian election of this weekend. So I would say Ealing and Acton are richer for having the Navastratian Centre in Northfields, the Hayashen Centre in Acton, which both have done fundraising for Nagorno-Karabakh refugees. But what is our government doing? It just feels that in our post-Brexit world, again, our desperation for trade deals, the fact that BP, I would like to ask the Minister how far oil pulls the strings in these relationships. People who did do election observation in Baku said you could smell the oil when you land. It's all about oil. And how ironic that COP29 will be held in Baku. What an act of greenwashing when we've heard at the APPG yesterday how the ground is being rendered infertile for flora and fauna, you know, this scorched earth policy and this greenwashing thing that they're doing by holding COP there. So I want to pay tribute to my Armenian communities, but also to press the government on aid. We know that the 0.7 commitment that we all stood on our manifesto to maintain has been cut. Could there be the introduction of a Safe Homes for Ukraine's type of scheme for refugees from Nagorno-Karabakh? We saw the trauma, psychological help for generations of people that have undergone this recent cycle of violence. It is a cycle of violence. But ultimately, I think the people of Nagorno-Karabakh want to return to their land, places that they've lived in for millennia, even though we see these sort of attempts to wipe out territories like Artsakh from the map. So I think I'll wind up here and just say that the eyes of the world may be elsewhere, but we must not forget, we must be consistent in our principles. In Ukraine, we say that self-determination and destruction are wrong, so why can we not apply the same principles consistently here? Shnor Havor, thank you.